The ridiculous British tank that needed 8 men just to drive it. Picture this: a 40-ton metal beast crawling across no man's land at walking speed. Inside, 8 men are screaming to be heard over an engine so deafening that permanent hearing damage is guaranteed. The temperature soars past 100 degrees. Toxic fumes fill the compartment. The driver cannot see where he's going. And to turn left or right requires 4 men working in perfect coordination because this machine has no steering wheel. This was the Mark IV tank, the British war machine that changed warfare forever, and it had a fatal flaw so absurd, so dangerous, that it would kill more of its own crew than the enemy ever could. The year is 1916. The Western Front has become a slaughterhouse. Millions of men are dying for yards of mud. Barbed wire stretches for hundreds of miles. Machine guns massacre anyone who crosses into the open. The war has reached a deadlock that generals cannot break. Then, on September 15th, the British unleash something the world has never seen. They call them tanks. 32 metal monsters lumber toward the German trenches at the Battle of Flers-Courcelette. The sight is so alien, so nightmarish, that German soldiers flee in panic. Some surrender immediately, others freeze, unable to process what they're witnessing. For the first time since the war began, barbed wire means nothing. Trenches can be crossed. Machine gun bullets bounce off iron plate. But these first tanks, the Mark Is, are fragile nightmares. They break down constantly. They catch fire. They get stuck. Of those 32 tanks, only 9 actually make it to the German lines. Still, the concept proves itself. The tank can break the stalemate. British command wants more, better, faster. Enter the Mark IV. Developed in early 1917, the Mark IV takes everything learned from the disastrous Mark I and makes it slightly less terrible. The designers know the fundamental problems. They know the tanks are death traps. They know the crew suffers unbearable conditions. But this is total war, and perfection is a luxury they cannot afford. The Mark IV is a rhomboid-shaped fortress on tracks. It measures 26 feet long, 13 feet wide, and 8 feet tall. It weighs between 28 and 32 tons depending on the variant. 2 massive track frames run the entire length of the hull, giving it that distinctive diamond profile. This shape isn't for aesthetics. Those tracks can grip the edge of a trench 10 feet wide and haul the entire machine across. Power comes from a Daimler 6-cylinder petrol engine producing 105 horsepower. In a car, that might be impressive. In a 30-ton tank, it means a maximum speed of just under 4 miles per hour. Walking speed. A fit soldier can keep pace with it. But speed isn't the point. The point is unstoppable momentum. The armor is revolutionary for its time. Thick steel plate covers the entire hull. Rifle bullets ping off harmlessly. Even machine gun fire at close range cannot penetrate. But there's a problem the designers didn't anticipate. When bullets strike the armor, they don't just bounce off. The impact sends fragments of molten metal spraying off the interior surface. These superheated shards blind and maim the crew. Early tank crews stuff the inside with leather padding and wear chainmail masks like medieval knights just to protect their faces from their own armor. The Mark IV comes in 2 versions. The male tank carries 2 6-pounder guns in huge sponsons that bulge from each side, plus 3 machine guns. The female tank sacrifices the heavy guns for 5 machine guns instead. The idea is that males fight enemy fortifications while females suppress infantry. In practice, crews learn that both versions are needed, often working in pairs. Here's where the insanity truly begins. There is no steering wheel, no single control station. To drive the Mark IV requires a crew of 8 men performing a carefully choreographed dance of coordination. The commander stands in the center, shouting orders that nobody can hear. The driver sits up front, staring through a tiny slit, half blind from engine smoke. He controls the throttle and gears, but he cannot steer. Steering is handled by 2 gearsmen, one on each side of the tank. Each gearsman operates the transmission for his track. To turn right, the right gearsman shifts down or brakes his track while the left track continues forward. To turn left, reverse the process. Every turn, every adjustment in direction requires the driver to signal the commander to relay orders by hand signals or by hitting men with a wooden mallet, and the gearsman to respond in perfect timing. Now add the gunners. 2 men operate the sponson guns on a male tank. Each sponson is a cramped iron box jutting from the hull. The gunner sits exposed to recoil, noise, and heat. 5 more men handle machine guns and act as loaders. Everyone is packed into a compartment barely larger than a garden shed, surrounded by ammunition, fuel, and screaming machinery. The noise inside is beyond description. The engine thunders. The tracks shriek. The guns roar. Men communicate by hitting each other, by crude hand signals, by reading lips. After a single battle, most crews suffer permanent hearing loss. The heat is worse. The engine generates furnace-level temperatures. Add the August sun beating down on a metal hull. Add 8 men packed together, exerting themselves. The interior regularly exceeds 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Men pass out from heat exhaustion. They vomit from the fumes. Carbon monoxide poisoning is routine. Before we go on, if forgotten and impossible war machines fascinate you, subscribe to Forgotten War Relics and hit the bell so you never miss one. Despite all this, the British War Office orders mass production. By mid-1917, hundreds of Mark IVs are rolling off assembly lines. 1,220 tanks in total will be built, more than any tank before it. This isn't just an experiment anymore. This is the future of warfare, whether the men inside survive it or not. The Mark IV is ready for battle. And the battle ahead will prove whether 8 men can truly control a beast this absurd. The Mark IV's baptism of fire comes at Messines Ridge in June 1917. 72 tanks lumber forward through Belgian mud. The battlefield is cratered, flooded, utterly destroyed by preliminary bombardment. This is the Mark IV's natural habitat, hell on earth. Within the first hour, 20 tanks break down, tracks snap, engines seize, gearboxes shatter under impossible strain. But the remaining 52 continue. They crawl over trenches the Germans thought were impassable. They crush barbed wire into the mud. Machine gun bullets spark harmlessly off their armor. For the infantry following behind, it's like watching gods of war. For the men inside those tanks, it's like being buried alive in a coffin that won't stop moving. One crew records temperatures of 135 degrees. The driver passes out twice. His gearsmen drag him back to consciousness by dumping water over his head. They have no replacement. Without him, the tank stops. Without the tank, the infantry dies. So they keep him conscious, keep him at the controls, keep driving. The offensive succeeds. British forces advance 2 miles. 2 miles sounds pathetic until you remember that previous offensives measured progress in yards and paid for it with 50,000 casualties. The Mark IV has just rewritten the mathematics of trench warfare. But Messines is nothing compared to what comes next. Cambrai, November 1717. The British planned the first true mass tank assault in history. 476 tanks. A third of them are Mark IVs. The objective is ambitious. Punch through the Hindenburg Line, the most fortified German position on the Western Front. Trenches backed by concrete bunkers, minefields, artillery, positions that have turned back every previous attack. 0 hour, 6:20 a.m. No preliminary bombardment. Just silence. Then the sound of engines. Hundreds of engines. The earth itself seems to be moving. The German sentries see them emerging from the morning fog. Metal beasts, dozens of them, rolling forward in waves. Some panic. Some fire uselessly into armored hulls. Some just run. The Mark IVs smash through the first trench line. The second, the third. Infantry pours through the gaps. In 6 hours, British forces advance 5 miles. 5 miles. More ground than 2 years of Somme offensives combined. Church bells ring in London. Newspapers declare victory. The tank has proven itself. The Mark IV has changed warfare forever. This is the moment the generals have been waiting for. Proof that machines can break the stalemate. Then reality sets in. Of the 476 tanks that attacked, 179 are destroyed or disabled by day 2. Mechanical failure kills more tanks than German guns. The Mark IV's drivetrains simply cannot sustain the strain. Gearboxes burn out, tracks disintegrate, fuel lines rupture, and there are no spare parts. No tank recovery vehicles, no logistics chain designed for this kind of warfare. The crews are even worse off. Hundreds suffer hearing damage. Dozens are hospitalized with carbon monoxide poisoning. Some simply collapse from heat exhaustion and never fully recover. The human cost of operating a Mark IV is unsustainable. You can build 1,000 tanks. You cannot build 1,000 crews willing to die slowly inside them. By 1918, the Mark IV is already obsolete. The Mark V appears with a better engine, better transmission. One man can finally drive it alone. The era of 8-man crews is over. It lasted barely 2 years. Today, only a handful of Mark IVs survive. Museum pieces. Relics from an age when engineers were still figuring out what a tank even was. But those museum displays don't convey the truth. They don't capture the noise, the heat, the claustrophobia. They don't explain what it meant to be one of 8 men struggling to control a machine that actively tried to kill you. The Mark IV worked. It won battles. It changed history. But it was never sustainable, never humane. It was a transitional monster, a necessary step between the trenches of yesterday and the mechanized warfare of tomorrow. The price of that transition was paid by every crew that climbed inside. They proved tanks could win wars. They just didn't prove that humans could survive winning them. The Mark IV remains a monument to an impossible idea, that you could take 8 men, seal them in a metal box, subject them to conditions no human should endure, and still expect them to fight. For a brief moment in history, it worked, but only because the men inside were tougher than the machine they operated. History remembers the tank. It forgets the crews. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to Forgotten War Relics for more of the strangest machines history forgot.